Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Here to talk all things hockey are your hosts, Brad Crisco, Ryan Hanna, and Evan Lobsinger.
Well, there's only one way to start this episode.
Bounce off Hinton, that hurt him. It got him in his left arm.
With audio of a horn interrupting us. Because we started with the Red Wings Lightning game and ended with the probably some of the most fun Red Wings fans have had online all season.
Every default horn or honk GIF on Twitter was used multiple times on my timeline.
It got to the point where I was seeing people who are like barely related to Red Wings Twitter tweeting things like, why is horn trending? Or why is everyone tweeting about a horn right now? Evan actually happened to be watching the game on mute and had absolutely no idea.
If there was one game for me to not watch on mute, it was probably that one because I didn't understand anything going on in social media.
Which, I mean, is a huge departure because Evan usually has such a firm pulse of
Yes.
what's happening on Twitter and social media. Oh boy. Well, more on that in a second. For those watching on YouTube, you're going to see Brad struggling with parenthood in the background, which is personally hysterical for Evan and I.
He's in a good mood, so I think I'm all right. He's just bouncing around on the bed with his cup. So, and Crystal's going to be home any minute now, so I think I'm all right. But, you know, such is the parenting curse. You think you're in the clear on anything, and it goes sideways in a hurry.
Yeah, of course. Right, Evan?
Yes, I know. It's the worst, isn't it?
We know all about that thing.
Well, with your stories about how Abby just doubles down on bad situations, I know you can at least relate a little bit.
Yeah, Abby's a good window. Abby's like a free trial as to what a kid would be. It only ever lasts for a few minutes, and it's not ever as bad as it is, but it's definitely like a lens into how stupid can this child be. Abby is not my child. She is a dog, but has probably I'd say the intelligence of a 2.5-year-old, and we'll never get beyond that.
So just slightly ahead of Hank then.
Anyhow.
He almost falls off the bed as I say that.
Yeah, well, he's got a big soft head to land on. As you hear him struggling in the background. And with that, welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast. I'm Ryan Hanna.
I'm Hank's dad.
And I'm Evan.
Lots to talk about on this episode of the podcast. First and foremost, we'll be talking about the Red Wings, their game against Tampa Bay last night. We're recording on Wednesday night, so between the two Tampa games, and we'll get into what happened there. Spoiler, it's a story you've seen before. Some other storylines surrounding the Red Wings, trade interest in Mark Stahl, some notable movement in Red Wings prospects in Europe. But then most importantly, and this is going to be quite a hefty episode for this, news from around the league, draft lottery, the actual draft, NU TV deal coming through. All of it happened in one episode. So as it usually is the case, with the NHL, when it rains, it pours. So we'll be diving into all of that before overtime. All right. Red Wings versus Lightning. Larkin's first game back looked great, had a great goal. And I want to talk actually more about that goal because oftentimes people ask about, you know, what does a change of a shot angle or what does like subtle deception look like? And I thought that was a really underappreciated goal. Going into the third period with a lead, 3-2. Surprisingly, they didn't lose it in regulation. I was fully expecting a regulation loss, but they ended up dropping the game in overtime to the Lightning.
Yeah, so overtime, I guess moral victories do still count this year. I got not a lot, truthfully. It was good. The Red Wings held on with Tampa. Tampa didn't look quite themselves, if we're being honest, because the only Red Wings to me that really stood out that game were Larkin and Zadina. Now, those are the exact two guys you want to see stand out, so no complaints there. But yeah, pretty uneventful game overall. I think the horn was the highlight of the first half of that game, at least. Some of the typical Red Wings bad habits crept in, sitting on a lead in the third period, just mental lapses in the fundamentals of hockey. Like a bad line change literally cost them the game in overtime by 2 players. And then the 2-on-1 was defended horribly that led directly to the winning goal. Again, this was a pretty good microcosm of the Red Wings season where, yeah, they did some really dumb things. Yeah, some players we expect to do some really good things did. A lot of guys left us wanting, and overall it was just a pretty unmemorable game, other than for the honks.
So the storyline started before the game, and that was with the news, which honestly I wasn't surprised by. I don't think a lot of people were surprised by it, but some, I guess, were still, I don't know, maybe just more angry about it, which is completely fair. And that's Evgeny Svechnikov still in the lineup, but a healthy scratch. So still in the roster, not sent down to the taxi squad or anything, but healthy scratched. And here's where I fall on this. And I've talked to a couple people about it too. This was coming. Doesn't matter which way you shake it. With Larkin coming back, with players slowly becoming more healthy, like if you look at the top 6 from last night, like this was going to come. It was going to be Svechnikov at some point. Even if it wasn't initially, he's going to get rotated in and out. Do I agree with that call? No. He's played 4 games. He has 4 points. He's on a roll. Keep the guy rolling until maybe you see him peter out a little bit. At that point, then yeah, absolutely, bring him in and out through scratches. That's fine. That's perfectly reasonable. Is one game worth losing your mind over? Honestly, there might have been a time where I would have been more upset about it, but how long have we been doing this with this coaching system? I just don't have the energy to get upset about a game when it was going to happen regardless. And that doesn't mean I approve of it, but it's going to keep happening. As long as this is the coaching team in place, and as long as this is the coaching philosophy in place, or management philosophy, I guess is more fair to say, in place, this is going to happen with Red Wings fringe, gray area, whatever you want to call it, players like Svechnikov. I just don't have it in me to be upset about it every night. He'll come back in, and I'll lose my mind if he doesn't. That's when I'll choose to be angry. I'm literally too tired right now.
From your standpoint of it's pointless beating this dead horse because this dead horse isn't going anywhere, I agree fully. Like, this is nothing new. This has been his entire 5 or 6 years. It's going to be the rest of the season and however long he's still here. But I'm going to use Blashill's own argument 3 weeks ago against him, where someone asked him about Svechnikov. He's like, I'm going to put him in the lineup once there's a spot, and I'm going to give him 8 minutes. And if he does something with 8 minutes, I'm going to give him 9 minutes. And if he does something with 9 minutes, I'm going to give him 10 minutes. Basically saying, hey, earn your keep and you'll stick around, is almost verbatim what he said. He lied. Straight up, he lied. I don't want to come up with a snarky, sarcastic joke with it because in Svechnikov's defense, it's a bit of a raw deal. And Svechnikov did everything that was asked of him. Did it well above expectation. And still got pulled from the lineup despite getting low amounts of ice and outside of being put on the second power play unit, not a whole lot of favorable situations. And he did excellent with it. Now, you can make the case, should Brome be pulled out of the lineup? Well, his counting stats suck, but he does the little things that Jeff Blashill appreciates, so fine. Luke Glendening, face-offs, fine. But there was a handful of guys that you could easily make the case that should have come out of the lineup for Svechnikov. I would have even argued Brome shouldn't have been in the lineup over Svechnikov, and we've been a Brome apologists all year. It's just Blashill's coach speak, dishonesty, and just general, like, it sounds harsh, but general cluelessness is just wearing on me. Like, if you're a coach whose decisions I disagree with, that's one thing. But a coach who doesn't tell us anything, and then when he tells us stuff, it's a lie, or it's not true, or it's just double coach speak that means nothing. It's just frustrating, and I don't expect any of it to change. I know you said the time to get angry about Svechnikov is when he doesn't come back into the lineup. He's not, if there's not going to be an injury, because he shouldn't have never been out of the lineup. I don't know. And the more I watch Blashill, I wanted to get into this, do a deep dive on this tonight, but clearly with all the other news, we don't have time. But Jeff Blashill is that employer who puts on his requirements for a job posting that you require 5 years of experience for an entry-level position. He's the NHL coach version of that.
The thing is, like, that's common. It's more uncommon, or it's more notable when we see a coach who doesn't speak with that, double coach speak, or who doesn't give these guys a hard time. Like, there's a reason why people latch onto a few different coaches and covet them so badly, because they do things like stick players in the lineup and give them the grace and the patience of making some mistakes or developing a little bit over time, or putting them in situations to succeed. We're frustrated with Jeff Blashill, but I don't think the nature of the frustration is necessarily unique in the NHL. And that's where a lot of my, like, it's not like I would prefer a different style of coaching. I'd prefer, for sure, I'd prefer Svechnikov to be in. It's funny because the two players I advocated for to cycle out, because Blashill's rationale was, well, Larkin's back, so that's Svechnikov's power play time gone, and Blashill really liked Brome with Rasmussen and Gagne. And as long as Rasmussen is up, because he's going to be up and down, because he'll be easy to send up and down, that's actually perfectly fair. Like, I don't necessarily agree with the call, but, like, yeah, that's totally reasonable. The two players I was going to advocate for were Brome and Ernie. And then I saw that Ernie had power play time. I was like, well, give him Ernie's power play time. Ernie does nothing on the power play. And what does Ernie do? Has a beautiful finish on the power play. Like, pulls the puck to his forehand and then beats the best goalie in the league, or one of the best goalies in the league. And I was like, well, there's that. That's this game. What else are you supposed to say? That's it.
I mean, if you look at hindsight being 2020, but if we're looking at how that game went versus who would have been a candidate to pull out of the lineup, and then, insert Svechnikov, I mean, I'm going to get hate for it, but the answer here is Darren Helm. It's literally Svechnikov's position. He had no positive impact on the game. And Darren Helm doesn't have a future with this team. Like, we all love Darren Helm, but he's 30-something years old on the final year of his contract where he's a UFA. Even if we re-sign him for another year, great, but that ice time is more valuable to Svechnikov. And again, even though the quote when it came out was stupid, when Blashill said, like, I'm going to give Svechnikov 8 minutes, I'm going to give him 9 minutes and see what he does, I actually got excited. I'm like, okay, I disagree with that uber slow approach, but thank you for telling us what the requirements are, what we should expect to see. And we saw that through the first 3 games. So we're like, okay, Jeff's true to his word. And then Svechnikov lived up to his end of the deal. And it didn't matter because Blashill, and again, like you said with the other point, this is true here. This is not a unique Jeff Blashill problem. It's not as common as it used to be, but still common around the NHL, where the wrong things get valued on the ice. Darren Helm wins puck battles. Darren Helm doesn't miss defensive assignments all that often. Like, the little details of the game that you learn over years and years in the NHL, which when they talk about veteran experience, this is the stuff they're referring to that you learn by doing on the job. It's not easy. It does take time. And when guys like Helm and Glendening and all these guys learn it, it's valuable because it's hard to do that stuff in the NHL because you're doing it against other NHL players who also know how to do that stuff. But that crap gets way overvalued. Even if Svechnikov isn't a dynamic player, his puck handling ability, his touch around the net, his shot, his vision should get priority over what he lacks. Like, if you told me right now I have to pick Svechnikov or Darren Helm to go into the corner and win a puck battle, I'm picking Helm. Like, obviously, he's way better at that stuff. But if you tell me I have to pick someone in just about every other aspect of the game, I'm picking Svechnikov right now, because what's up in the NHL this year? Goal scoring, offense, create offense. Darren Helm, love him, but he's a black hole for offense. So I don't think this is necessarily Blashill being wrong in what he's arguing. I just think what he's arguing is the wrong thing to be arguing. Take the dynamic players and teach them to do what Darren Helm does. This is getting back to my 5 years of experience for an entry-level job. You want Svechnikov to do what the Helms and the Glendenings of the world do. He needs to do it. Put him on the ice. He's not learning that shit in practice. So again, I'm beating a dead horse, and I could go on for hours getting into even more detail about this, but that's just my grandiose point is he's right about the things that these guys are better about, but he's wrong about how it impacts the overall game of hockey.
We tried, Evan. We really did try.
I do remember that, yes. I read that message.
We've been trying to take a little bit of the correct Brad's grammar offline, because sometimes it's just needlessly cruel. And so
when he messes it up again, we have to ramp up the hand slap.
Yeah. So what Brad meant to say was his grand point, not his grandiose point. Although inadvertently, he's almost correct in the definition, but we won't get into that right now.
I didn't know the difference either until Ryan corrected you. So now
nobody knows the difference on 90% of this. Ryan is that guy on Reddit correcting people's grammar that everybody hates.
I don't do it on Reddit. I just do it on a podcast with my friends. So here's my thing, and we're gonna wrap up this point after this. Svechnikov is out for one game. Before you hear us next, there will be another game on Thursday night against Tampa, and on a 5 p.m. game on Sunday the 14th against Carolina. I have to assume Svechnikov is going to be in for one of those games. We'll talk more then. I'm not going to cry about it for now. I talked about the Larkin goal. A lot of people always ask, like, what do you mean by changing the shot angle, or what do you mean by deception, or what can you do? Look at what Dylan Larkin does in this goal. First of all, he recognizes that he has space, so he doesn't have to work so hard to protect the puck on his stick. What does he do? He sets the puck to lay in the perfect spot for him, and he hovers his stick over the puck, does a little wave back and forth to throw Vasilevsky, masks his shooting angle. He's not telling Vasilevsky how he's primed to shoot. And then when he puts his stick down to shoot in one quick, fluid motion, where the start of it almost looks like he's going short side, goes across Vasilevsky's body to the left side of the net in the perfect spot and beats him. Vasilevsky's not an easy goalie to beat. A couple people said, well, Vasilevsky was out of position. Watch it and watch it again. Larkin put Vasilevsky out of position. That was an excellent, excellent goal. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, for Larkin to miss time and come back and do that, like, what a nice reminder that he is still the best player on this team right now. Just a fantastic goal to watch.
This is a good example. And Larkin's actually one of the better players in the league at this particular skill. And watch closely. Joe Veleno coming up is also really good at it. If you want to teach your kids how to be good, especially if they shoot left, teach them to control the puck in front of their body and then change the shot angle by bringing it out wide like Larkin did and then going over the pad. When you hit your spot, that is almost impossible to stop because the goalie has to play the angle of the puck because they don't know what way you're going if the puck's in front of you, right? Like dead set in front of you. And then pulling it over to your forehand outside of your body and hitting that spot quickly. It's a perfect move. You see Jokinen set records in the shootout with that exact move. It is near impossible to stop. It's all about changing the shooting angle. With Larkin and a couple other guys in the league, they're really good at the in front of their body and then quickly pull it to their forehand and snap it. Austin Matthews, for example, changes the shooting angle, but his strength is the opposite. He holds it way out in front of his body and then toe drags it into his body to change the shooting angle. That's how you throw goalies off because they have to play the puck because if they don't play the puck, they're giving you half the net to shoot at and any good shooter is just going to take that. So Larkin truly is one of the best in the league at that. So to see him being just like getting back to doing that was a relief to see because I think I might have even tweeted about it last night. Like last night was probably the first game this season where to me Larkin looked like Larkin. We saw flashes of it throughout the season, but last night he was flying around the ice, going like laps around the offensive zone, in and out of traffic. He had a couple bad giveaways, but he didn't play for a while. He was rusty. Fine, that's going to happen. But he looked like the Dylan Larkin we know, which has not been the case all season. So it was refreshing to see. Like I said earlier in the episode, Larkin was on his game. And then you combine that with the fact that Philip Zadina had another very strong game. I mean, if there's not a ton of positives to take away from that game, there's two right there. And those were, again, the two biggest positives the Red Wings need to see right now. I even, when Larkin was about to score the goal, I was like mapping out a tweet like, man, I think we're getting close to the point where we can make a case Zadina is the best player on this team, like full stop. And then Larkin does that and reminds me that, no, you're an idiot. Zadina's top 2 or 3 on this team, no doubt. But this is still Larkin's team.
Yeah. A third good point, third silver lining, 5th straight game with a power play goal.
Yes.
Look how far we've come.
Yeah. It's almost like when they cycle the puck down low and run the power play through Zadina, good things happen. It's weird.
So much credit to this team. I've seen so much more of this the past 4 or 5 games. They use the seams that they create. They move. It's not some static cycle, and it's creating opportunities. I have to stop myself from clipping every time they just have a good passing play that just ends up in a save, but it's still a fantastic passing play. And you can tell because everyone's saying like, oh, wow, that was a great passing play from Detroit. Meanwhile, if you're a fan of like the Lightning or the Leafs or the Bruins or something, you're like, that was a chance that we are used to seeing.
Well, the Braden Point power play goal, that was the play Detroit's tried 100 times this year and hasn't succeeded on yet. It was down low to the bumper, quick shot, goal, textbook. Like people were ripping on Detroit's defense there, but what do you do on that one? You either pull someone way out of the box and way out of position, therefore leaving someone else wide open. Your only hope is to time the pass perfectly, which when you're as good as the Tampa Bay Lightning are, you can't. I know Bobby Ryan's tried it a lot this year with Gagne. It was good. That's truthfully the biggest change in the Red Wings power play, why it's been successful lately, is they are getting the puck down low a bunch more. And case in point, that's how they scored the power play goal yesterday. Zadina put the puck wide down low to Ernie. Ernie realized he had space behind him and took it. It was perfect. Like, it's not complicated, but it spreads the defense out, and it was great.
Obviously, they gave up the lead in the third, just 1 goal. So, I mean, as far as giving up leads goes, that was, within a reasonable, it was a reasonable lead to give up. And in overtime,
just don't take a screenshot of the moment Chernak got.
No.
Oh,
No. We won't be doing that, Brad. It's okay. We can't be sad all the time. Overtime, there's some good control both ways, but then a couple pretty rough changes. Tampa Bay went and capitalized as they do on 3-on-3 hockey. It only takes one small mistake or just one good bounce and 3-on-3 hockey's over. Honestly, when people are like, Ryan, what are you looking for if not for wins? That's a game where I'm altogether, I can walk away and say, here are 3 to 5 things that certain Red Wings of the team altogether did well. Did everyone do well? No, absolutely not. They would have won if that was the case. We have to work within the realm of reality here. Do I want to see other players do different things better next game? Yeah, absolutely. It's never going to be a full list until it's a good team. But that was a game where, just to wrap up this topic, I felt good about some of the things the Red Wings did. 3-2 loss in overtime to Tampa. Perfectly fine. Perfectly fine by me. Some other Red Wings news. There was some reporting on whether our players that Toronto's looking to add, and believe it or not, among the list, Mark Stahl.
There's no way Kyle Dubas does that. There's no way.
Kyle, if you're listening, please don't stop. Don't take him. We
need him.
We need him.
He is the gold standard of a shutdown defenseman.
He is completely propping up Troy Stetcher 1,000%. It's night and day, and it's absolute not the opposite of that.
Marc-Edouard Vlasic, Mark Stahl.
They're both named Mark. That's all the analytics
same
you
people.
need.
The same person.
Yeah, prime Marc-Edouard Vlasic and Mark Stahl, you can't even tell them apart. Some other news about the Red Wings. Albin Greva is finally committing to coming over to play for, it's the Saginaw Spirit, right? In the OHL.
Yep. Which is a good sign that the OHL season might actually happen, although there's something coming up in Europe with the transfer deadline, which I think might have more to do with it. But either way, if there was going to be no season, he wouldn't have bothered.
Yeah, exactly. So good sign on 2 fronts and probably a good move for Greva. Is he at the top of the Red Wings, prospects to be excited about list? No, but this is a good opportunity for Detroit to get both a closer look at him, a little bit more control in his development because he'll be closer to Detroit, quite obviously. And, who knows? He'll adjust to the North American game and we can go from there. Seider and Johansson continue to dominate in Sweden. We'll probably dive a little bit more into prospects overseas in coming episodes, but there's just so much league news right now that I think we should probably jump into that.
Well, a couple that are very relevant to Detroit.
Yeah. So first and foremost, let's start with the date of this upcoming NHL draft. There were a lot of questions about when it would be because it was supposed to be this July. And there was a lot of talk about the NHL and any certain owners and GMs and scouting teams and the NHLPA even wanting to move the draft to either December or next January, or do a double draft next year. There's just a bunch of options on the table. We'll lay it out first. There were a lot of people, I would say the majority of hockey people were advocating for this to happen. And it was for a good reason, I believe. I don't necessarily agree, but the reasoning was you need to give these kids a chance. You need to give them a chance to play. Like, think of the kids in the OHL. Think of the kids who aren't stars, who really need every single game in their draft years to be scouted. You need to give them a chance to play and prove themselves. And you just don't have that. And not only that, scouting teams are like, we don't have anything to work off of. Like, past the first round, what are we supposed to do? And that's really where a draft is won or lost. But in the end, there were just far too many logistical hurdles for so many reasons. You know, roster restrictions, deadlines, contracts, everything that comes with this. It would have just been far too complicated. And so the result is the draft is staying on its planned date this summer in July, which I think we agree. I don't know where you fall in this, Evan, but I think, Brad, you and I agree that that's probably for the best.
You're talking about the draft date, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like there's too many pieces that need to fall into place, like with the PA, and it screws up all of the contracts and when people would become free agents and restricted free agents. Like, just the dominoes that have to fall after you move the date is just, it's way too much. Like, you got to just eat this one, and there's going to be obviously GMs and teams that are not happy about it, but unprecedented times, roll with the punches.
Yeah, I mean, if you've been doing your work, you're not going in blind. You've had a full year of these guys, or close to a full year. The amount of players that aren't playing is pretty overblown. The USHL has been running in some capacity. The NCAA has been running. Almost all of Europe has been running. The QMJHL has been running. It's really just the OHL and the WHL that are getting screwed. That being said, a few of their players have been playing elsewhere, and it does look like, well, the WHL actually just got underway, and the OHL doesn't seem like it's going to be too far behind, even if it's going to be an abbreviated season. I think it was the right move. This is a complicated, confusing year. And the whole point of this season was to clean up this season basically as quickly as possible so that they can go in with a fully vaccinated, fresh start to next year. And thus, as of September, October, we're back to quote unquote life as normal in the NHL and by the NHL's calendar and schedule. Delaying the draft throws another huge wrench into that. I don't think there was much of an appetite for that. I think it was the right move. There obviously are disadvantages. Video scouting isn't the same. Teams hate it, and that sucks, and I had no argument here. Yeah, you're going to have... With less travel, though, they will actually get a chance to look at more players, right? Because you take out travel time, you can watch a bit more video, cover a few more leagues, et cetera, et cetera. So... might unearth some more diamonds in the rough that maybe otherwise wouldn't have been. But this does create a unique situation where the opposite is going to happen, where there are guys who are, like, we always talk about Joe Veleno, like how he's a slow developer, but once he gets it, he gets it. So players like him, if there's any in the draft, this sucks for them because they're going to plummet down the draft board because they did not get the full amount of time to get the full head of steam that they would need. Where this could be advantageous for teams is A, if you have a good scouting department, and B, you have a boatload of picks outside of the first round. Anybody know any teams that fit that description? So
I heard the Pittsburgh Penguins have a lot of picks this year. I think they have 2. So
if you're sitting here and you're a Red Wings fan upset about this, I wouldn't be. I think that having 3 second-round picks, 2 third-round picks, Detroit's in a great spot. There are going to be really good players available in those rounds. And most years, there's a couple players in the second and third round that you can pluck out, but there's probably going to be more than that. for example, there's a guy that plays here in Kitchener I'm really high on. Obviously, he plays in Kitchener. Got to watch a close look. Bias is all hell. But a guy like Francesco Pinelli. When I watched him in his 16-year-old year, I'm like, okay, he's 10 to 15 on my draft board. And then I'm looking at most mocks, and he's, early to late 30s on most. Well, the Red Wings are going to be picking in that range. So, like, he's just one example of a guy that they could grab there that might not otherwise be there. I think Elite Prospects had Pinelli in the top 10, but I digress. So it's going to be a bit more of a scattershot draft, but outside of Brandt Clarke, look at the top of this draft. Owen Power's been playing. William Eklund's been playing. Luke Hughes has been playing. Matt Beniers has been playing. Kent Johnson's been playing. They're getting looks at a lot of guys. And then to factor in one more thing to the Red Wings that could be an advantage here is, and I think when we had JD Burke on here, he even referenced this, but the Red Wings might have the best European scouting department in the league. Their North American scouting department, the last, in recent memory at least, has left a little to be desired. Well, if you're unsure of what's going on in the WHL with a bunch of teams missing in the UHL, USHL, and the OHL, maybe that you lean heavier on Europe this year just out of comfort and familiarity. Okay, well, that sits perfectly okay with me because I want Håkan Andersson making as many picks as possible for this team. So if he's sitting there at pick number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and like just smashing the table for William Eklund, and they're like, okay, well, we've seen him more than other guys, we'll take him. If he's sitting there at like, pick 32, banging the table for Stromgren or someone else, great. Like, whatever. I'm not saying these are the guys they should take necessarily, but if it's a draft where you go with your comfort zones, I mean, Håkan Andersson's the guy. So no complaints here.
So maybe conversely, and I'm not sure really how this fits in, but you mentioned the guys that are getting a ton of exposure. The players in Michigan, Matt Beniers is probably topping a lot of lists right now, pretty close to it on mine, and I think yours too, Brad. There's a lot of exposure to those guys. So you're looking at a situation where maybe the Red Wings would have been high on those guys regardless, because obviously Michigan's right there. They have a really close relationship with that system. It's a fantastic hockey program. A lot of connections to current Red Wings players, quite obviously. Their captain. This is now maybe another situation where if the Red Wings want their guy and he wasn't the number one or number 2 rated kid on the board, they still have to land a really high lottery pick because they're probably going to be drafted higher, or the chances of them slipping is a lot lower because of that overexposure effect. Just a thought.
Yeah, like, I'm fascinated by what happens to a guy like Brandt Clarke. At one point this year, he was number 1 on my board because I was basing my list largely on their U17 seasons. Brandt Clarke didn't play for a good chunk of the season, and now he's playing in like a second-tier men's league in Slovakia, which is hard to get a read on. He looks great over there, but that's not like, it's a tier 2 Slovakian league. Hard to get a gauge. So I could see Brandt Clarke still cracking the top 5. I could see him going 15 just because guys are like, can we really invest this high of a pick on a guy we're not sure about? So it does create problems. And again, just like I mentioned with the Red Wings, it's, do you swing for some guys who are bigger risks, but you think they've fallen way down the board, like a Brandt Clarke, like a Francesco Pinelli, or do you pick the guys that you have seen? But conversely, if you've seen them, everybody's seen them. So it's going to be a truly fascinating draft. And as a podcast host, the storylines that this is going to create going into the draft and the uncertainty, I am absolutely here for.
Yeah, not even just as a podcast host, as a draft nerd, Brad, you're going to be geeking out for months. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and the good news for those for the listeners is that when the season wraps in early May, we're going to jump right into or turn full tilt into draft coverage. We're going to be our profiles will likely actually be started by then, and
they're going to probably be started pretty soon.
Actually, right now I'm kidding. Yeah. We're going to be kicking that up. So that is a little bit of normalcy that maybe you guys will be happy to have back, as opposed to last year's never ending draft coverage season. It was like 8 months of coverage. I've never been so well versed for a draft. Anyhow, Let's move on to the other draft news, which was and none of this is confirmed. It still has to be approved by the Board of Governors. And as we've seen with the NHL, they have a tendency to change things a million times before deciding. But there was a memo circulated for a proposal to change the NHL draft lottery rules. Just in time, I would say. Just kidding. But the best time was, however many years ago, and the second best time is still however many years ago, and the third best time is now. The proposed changes are teams are going to be limited to 2 lottery wins in a 5-year period. So if they win the lottery for any of the lottery picks, doesn't necessarily have to be first, you're limited to 2 in a 5-year period. That would start not this lottery, but next year. So 2022.
So the one thing I didn't understand about this, and Ryan, maybe you read somewhere else that was a little clear. So one of the other parts we're going to talk about here, which is it's only 2 lottery spots starting this year. That's the one change that takes effect this year. If a team wins the lottery this year, I was to understand that counts as one of their 5. Yes?
I thought that only... So let me list...
I could be wrong.
I thought this year was not counted.
Yeah, I don't think this year counts.
Okay, because I know the 2 lottery winners starts this year. At least according to Friedman. But then, that other part was a little unclear, but yeah.
Brad's hot in the pants. Actually, it's funny, Brad, because I think I got this info from something you retweeted. Perfect. So the 3 changes are 2 lottery wins in a 5-year period max. Teams are only allowed to jump up 10 spots as opposed to, theoretically from 13 spots or whatever it is. And then a reduction in the amount of actual lottery picks. So currently picks 1, 2, and 3 are decided by a lottery, and now it'll be picks 1 and 2.
Phrasing, because it's not picks 1 and 2. There's only 2 lottery balls drawn. So if pick 14 wins, they jump up to pick 4.
Right. Yes. Sorry. Could be. That's exactly right.
Because hypothetically, if the Red Wings finish dead last this year, if Buffalo doesn't out Buffalo them, and picks teams 13 and 14 win the draft lottery, the Red Wings pick first, and in that scenario, that would not count as a lottery win towards future seasons. So like way out there theory, never happened due to odds. A team could pick first overall 5 years in a row if teams far enough down win the lottery. Like the odds of that are astronomical, but it is possible under the system, and I did see clarification on that.
So, okay, let's say your team, New York Rangers, and you are the last lottery team. You're the closest to the playoffs, and you move up 10 spots. That doesn't count as a lottery win?
That counts as a lottery win.
Okay, yeah.
That counts as a lottery win. So like I said, there is a scenario where teams 13 and 14 win, they jump up to spots 3 and 4. So the team that finished last and second last don't move. They still pick first and second, and that does not count as a lottery win. So they could still win the lottery twice in the next 4 years.
So go ahead.
How many whiteboards do you think they use to come up with this?
It's literally just
Carol.
No, it's Always Sunny in Philadelphia in front of the board. It's 1,000% that scene when they were.
You know what? NASA was, trying to put new satellites around Pluto, take pictures of the outer solar system. No, they got dragged in to the NHL draft lottery, and that's where all the budget's gone this year. And this is what we got.
So I'm going to clarify a couple of the nuances of those 3 points. So first, the only one to apply for this upcoming draft lottery is 2 lottery balls are being drawn instead of 3. The reduction to only jumping up 10 spots and the no more than 2 lottery wins in a 5-year period, those start next year, which is good. Another aspect of this, so Brad mentioned that the same team could draft, top first overall pick however many years in a row if it keeps being, theoretically teams 13 or 14 keep jumping up. Another aspect to this is, let's say a team wins 2 lotteries, they jump up, and let's say in the third year, they've already used their 2 and 5 years. Let's say in the third year, they're actually the worst team in the league. They can still technically keep that first overall spot or the second overall spot. If they don't get bumped out, then they keep it. They don't get artificially bumped out. They would have to get bumped out by a lottery ball. So that's another aspect to this. It's all very complicated, and expect the details to change. This is the NHL. But let's discuss it based on what the rules are that they put forward. And I'm going to start with the one that I think is the softest and I disagree with most. I think 10 spots is still too many. I don't think it should be more than 6, at most 7. That's what I would like to see it. Honestly, if it was up to me, I'd go 5. 10 is too much.
Yeah, I don't love the number. It's too many, but to me, this is a hill I'm not willing to die on, because by limiting it to only a 2-spot lottery, it kind of mitigates one of the factors that I hated about teams jumping up. And like, that one year Dallas and Philly jumped up together and bumped some good teams down, some teams that needed the help down to 4, 5, 6. Yeah, even hypothetically, if spots 9 and 10 jump up, the worst team's still picking 3rd. So it's fine. I don't love it. Compared to the system we just had, I'm a huge fan of this, because, the New York Rangers were in the playoffs last year and got Alexis Lafreniere, so that would not have been possible under this system. So got to take the wins where we can get them. So, yeah, I don't like it. I'm with you on that, but it's not a number I'm super passionate about either.
Yeah, and I think that take is kind of where I fall. I'm pretty lukewarm on it. Like, if we're going to work under the current structure of the lottery system, which, you don't have to have been listening for long to know that I'm a huge advocate for the gold plan or something, another alternative. But if we're going to work with this system, these are reasonable changes that I'm happy to see made. That said, I think it's a little too late, but I'm not going to complain about that. I'm fine with it. I like the changes overall. It's also important to note Seattle is going to come in with 3rd best odds this year. So there's still an opportunity here for Detroit to get screwed by the 3 spots that we've traditionally seen them get bumped down by. So don't forget that. That's part of the whole expansion deal. Brad, you have a point.
The prophecy is self-fulfilling.
Oh, it absolutely is.
And especially with what Buffalo's doing right now. Jeez. So the good news for Red Wings fans here is there is absolutely no reality, which was a relief to me because this was my paranoid conspiracy theory for a long time. There's no reality where the Red Wings will be ineligible from the Shane Wright draft lottery unless they massively overperform expectations next year, which would be make us happy. So if, the Red Wings are battling for a playoff spot next year, I don't think any of us are going to be that upset. So, Shane Wright and Brad Lambert and the other top end draft prospects, who is it, Matt Savoy's next year as well, I believe. The Red Wings are eligible. Hey, one of those guys isn't even going to be a lottery pick. That's going to be fun. So if the Red Wings finish dead last, they're guaranteed one of them. That's good. The 2 and 5 years thing, I'm totally fine with that. Like, we look at what's happening in Buffalo right now. You can't have that. You can't have teams going so nuclear that even when they get the Jack Eichel, they still can't get their shit together. So totally fine with that. I should have prefaced this by saying I'm still very anti-lottery. I think it's dumb. But if they're going to do a lottery, which I understand they're always going to, and we're never not going to have a lottery, I'm fine with this system. I don't love it. It's got its imperfections, but a team that's on the fringe of the playoffs can't pick first or second overall. Fine. The worst team in the league's guaranteed at least 3rd overall. Fine. I don't know exactly how the odds shake down in this, but and from a Red Wings centric standpoint, I'm still not sure that this year, if they win the draft lottery this year, it won't count. But I expect the Red Wings to be turning this around in 3 years anyway, so they better damn well not need to be in 5 straight lotteries from this point. But yeah, what's their worst case scenario? They win the draft lottery this year or the number 2 overall pick. It counts as one of their 5. They go into next year and win it again, and then they can't win it for 3 years. Well, if they get a high pick this year and then win the draft lottery next year, either one of the spots, we're laughing. I don't care about the 3 drafts after that. The Red Wings will have the pieces to be good. So
yeah,
from a Red Wing standpoint, this was a pretty good outcome given everything that was on the table.
Yeah, and someone summarized it really well on Twitter. with how the loopholes work with if this goes through as is, it does more to hypothetically prevent the Capco Lafreniere situation than it does the McDavid, Nugent Hopkins, Hall, etc. situation. That can still very much happen. So I would prefer that to be the case. I've had to get rid of one of those two because, like Brad said, it's not fun to watch Buffalo just completely flounder like this. It's actually bad for the sport. But anyhow, we are going to probably come back to that topic as things are finalized. We don't have to worry. I'm sure it's going to change 17,000 more times because it's the NHL. But for now, one thing that remains consistent is the fact that this episode of the Winged Wheel podcast is proudly brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook, who we are thrilled to partner with as they give us fans what we really need: more excitement in the game. They're America's #1 sportsbook for so many reasons. FanDuel is easy to use from registration to deposits and finding great bets. Withdrawals are quick and easy. You get your money back in as quick as 24 hours. Now listen to this. FanDuel is letting you place your first bet risk-free up to $1,000. Just place a bet on any game and FanDuel will refund you up to $1,000 back if you don't win your first bet. No strings attached. If you win, you keep the cash. If you lose, you'll get up to $1,000 back in site credit. We wish we could bet on games like I mentioned previously, like the Red Wings Lightning game. I think some people might have made some money on the Red Wings only losing by 1 goal, and that would have been fun to use the $1,000 risk-free on. But we're excited that you are able to, so make sure you download the FanDuel Sportsbook app to get started with the risk-free bet of up to $1,000 and use promo code WWP so they know the Winged Wheel podcast sent you. That's the FanDuel Sportsbook app, promo code WWP. You must be 21 and older and present in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois, West Virginia, Indiana, Colorado, Iowa, Tennessee, Virginia, or Michigan. First online real money wager only. Site credit is non-withdrawable and expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for details. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana, 1-800-GAMBLER in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois, and Virginia. Tennessee Red Line 1-800-889-9789, www.1800gambler.net in West Virginia, or call 1-800-270-7117 in Michigan. All right, guys. You know what's coming back? That is so nostalgic to me. Like the chills I got when I heard that again.
And then I saw the interview with Gary Thorne going around today. Oh, yes.
I didn't even love, we're going to get into the details here in a second, but I didn't even love the ESPN's coverage of the NHL around the time it was wrapping up. We all saw what was happening. The NHL was kind of moving to the back burner. We would see, I think LeBron was starting his career around that time, or we'd see NBA and MLB highlights over the NHL every day. But the world of sports has changed, and this is going to be a familiar feeling for a lot of Red Wings fans. So the news that came out, that's been rumored over the last couple of days and came out today, was that the NHL and Gary Bettman has closed up at least one part of its current or its new TV deal in the United States. With NBC's rights expiring. And so for the next 7 years, pulling in about $400 million a year for the NHL, which is double what NBC currently pays for the entire package. The NHL is going to be brought to you by ESPN, which is...
And ABC and Disney. Who knows what they might do with that?
Yeah. So the details of it are as follows. So it's going to be about $400 million a year for that ESPN will be paying. Disney owns ESPN for context here. That's a huge boost, and that's the kind of revenue boost that the NHL needed, especially considering they have additional TV rights to sell. So the fact that they've already doubled their previous TV deal, that's great. It's great for the league. More money coming in, higher cap, less financial restraints, et cetera, et cetera. ESPN, this applies to ABC/ESPN. They're going to air for the next seven Stanley Cup finals, and they'll have at least a conference final every year. The deal, they're going to have half the NHL's playoff packages and a bunch of simulcast and megacast stuff, national games. NHL.TV, as it exists in the United States, is going to be folded into ESPN Plus. So for those of you who have that package, you're going to have to keep a lookout for ESPN Plus over there. I know there's a big bundle with ESPN Plus and Disney offerings. That price is likely to go up. I think it's at $12.99 now. Maybe it'll be $13.99, something like that. So those details are still to come, I'm pretty sure. The deal doesn't impact NHL center ice out of market TV packages. So if you have one of those, you don't have to worry about that. But it's huge. ESPN, look, whether you like it or not as hockey fans, because obviously ESPN, I don't want to say they didn't do hockey justice, but they didn't sell hockey as their premier product in the past. Whether you like it or not, ESPN probably has the biggest sports fan base, especially those that aren't currently hockey fans and they're younger. And that is important. You want to grow the game, you get them, and you get them while they're impressionable and their brains are sponges, and you teach them at the youngest age possible, like Brad is doing with his 2 kids, that hockey is the greatest game on the planet. And that's what that is a great opportunity to capitalize for the NHL. You get this on ESPN Plus, you get these games on Hulu. Kids are going to tune in. Younger people, young adults are going to tune in, maybe those who haven't watched hockey before. It's a tale as old as time. Someone falls in love with hockey either at a young age or as an adult. It's just about bringing the game to them. And that to me is the biggest win of all of this. The broader audience of those potential hockey fans.
My big win out of this is the network that brought us Mike Milbury and Mike Babcock will get less games broadcast. So big fan of that. Had to just get that jab in there. I try to play politically correct with these kind of people, but when you're trying to give Mike Babcock a blank slate, yeah, I've got issues. But I don't know.
I bet it's going to happen on ESPN too. It's going to happen everywhere.
Let's
sorry, buddy.
Let's at least see if the grass is greener on the other side. What's the you said they're younger in that whole thing, so that old phrase, I can't wait for the day teams start playing young players who might be bad versus old players who are bad. I feel like we can translate that to apply here. But yeah, so, I mean, it's a ton of money. Great for the salary cap. As fans of a team that does willingly spend to the salary cap when they're competitive, great. The Red Wings should be good at some point in this deal, which means they'll probably get more nationally broadcast games, which will be relevant to us, which will be relevant to the playoffs, which hopefully will be relevant to us in the Stanley Cup final. I don't really see a downside here. I know they're going to try and milk this for extra money. We might see some exclusive stuff with like Disney Plus or, like Ryan already mentioned, ESPN Plus. There's going to be those things in the age of the paid subscription internet era. Fine. I get it. It's coming. We just have to accept it. I don't know. I see this as a big win. I'm curious to see what's going to happen with the rest of the rights because, like Ryan said, I just assume NBC is going to come in and scoop up whatever's left, but I don't know. I'm happy.
So, yeah, that's a detail that still has to be worked out. As a fan of the NHL and someone who wants to see the NHL pull in more cash because that means more growth for the game, I'm not so certain NBC will be the choice. So NBC has the right to first negotiate, which obviously they didn't take on the whole thing, so they forfeited at least some degree of that right. I wouldn't be surprised if NBC, and this was argued on The Athletic, I want to say by Richard Deitsch. I'm sorry if I'm saying his name wrong. NBC's interested, but the thing is, they just shut down their sports network. Like they're wrapping up NBC Sports and everything is getting partitioned out into, USA Network or Peacock or whatever it is. It's all pretty complicated. They're probably going to want to pick this up if they can get a deal from the NHL, and maybe the NHL is a little bit more willing to give that to them because they'll be getting a lesser package than ESPN has the rights to. And so they wouldn't be paying the full $400 million a year, or, someone like Fox Sports comes in. Or someone else comes in. Like this is the age of the Amazon buying into streaming services and everything like that. Like there's a lot of players at hand here, and I don't want to get too far ahead, but the fact that there's still an opportunity for the NHL to package this out a little bit more is great for their bottom line, and it's great for the league's future, especially having lost so much revenue to no butts and seats. NBC is probably the most likely one here, but who knows? There's two things I care about. The two things I care about, I'm not talking about dollars here. I'm not talking about the business side of things. I'm not talking about the salary cap. As a fan, two things. One, streaming is reasonable and accessible. Get rid of blackouts. Make it affordable. Show these games to people. Don't make it hard for people to watch your games. People are happy to pay if it's good quality and a reasonable price. They would rather do that than stream or pirate it. 2,
Gretzky had it, lost it. Eisenman picks it up. Eisenman moving. Blue line chance.
Gary Thorne. Bring
Couldn't
back
you just
Gary.
edit that in rather than giving us the cell phone version?
Yeah, maybe I'll do it in post. You know, maybe they're going to get the actual version. I just wanted to get your reaction, Evan.
You got it. I could barely hear it, Ryan.
You can hear it?
No, not really.
That's because he wasn't paying
I knew what
attention.
it was.
Bring us Gary Thorne back. He's, what is he, like 75 now or something? But he's expressed an interest in doing it. It's just so much nostalgia, and I just want to ride that wave.
He's looking for a job, so it would kind of be the natural pick, I would think.
If they're bringing back the theme song, they have to bring back Gary Thorne. If he's up for it, then yeah, absolutely. I'm all in on there. Some other news to come around that I mentioned the salary cap. Bettman confirmed that it's not like the salary cap's going to skyrocket up, but it's going to help maintain the league's revenues and keep the salary cap at the very least flat over the next 4 years or close to flat. So we won't see a big change in the cap, but we can hopefully stave off any more big dips. And I don't know, Brad, did you see the news about the NFL from like 195 to 182, their salary cap? That's like a 7 to 8% dip.
Yep. It's the pandemic world we live in, and nobody should be surprised if the same thing happens to the NHL.
So this goes a long way to stop that from happening, which is super, super, super important. And I know a lot of people who are like, hockey purists, like I actually think I am, are going to be looking at this and saying, Ryan, why do you care so much about the business side of it? Like, why do you care so much about their bottom line? Or it's bad that they're partitioning it out. And I'm just like, we've seen what the growth of the different major professional sports has done to the landscape of the big 4, big 5 professional leagues. The reality is the NHL is being outpaced by the other leagues, hand over fist. The excitement and how the NBA has managed to pull in young fans is absolutely unparalleled for the future and the growth of the game. So places like Arizona don't fail. So places like, Houston can succeed in the future or whatever it might be. So Seattle succeeds. You need to get this game exposed to more people. So that's why I'm excited about it. Anyhow, enough of me rambling. Any other topics we want to cover before jumping into overtime?
Nothing I'm passionate about.
All right. You heard that first. Brad's not passionate about anything anymore. We're going to jump into overtime here. And on this midweek episode of the Winged Wheel podcast, it is Patreon exclusive. Our Winged Wheel podcast patrons are the reason we are able to run the show and do things like draft coverage and things like that throughout the off season. So thank you all so much. We are going to start with Arjun Shankar. Arjun says, Ryan, if you don't read my comment exactly, it's because you are unjustifiably censoring me. If you must cross a course cow across a crowded cow crossing, cross the course cow across a crowded cow crossing carefully. Eat it, Arjun. Honky Town Evan says, it's been a long time since I felt so honk. Maybe last night was a sign to trade for Hornkfist. That's actually funny. I didn't see a single Hornkfist pun in there. Nate Schwartz says, welcome to the Honk the Horn podcast with your hosts, Brad Honk Crisco, Ryan Honk, Hannah, and Evan. That's literally what Brad made his screen name.
Yep. Nailed it.
For those who didn't watch the game, and maybe we didn't specify, the horn was going off every minute at like the 59, 58 second mark for the whole first period. It was extremely funny. I think at one point they got it down to 2 minutes, so that's good. Josh Terrell says, all right, boys, I think it's time to roll out the trebuchet. I'm loading up Nielsen Blash, our reverse retros, Evan's mute button, and the LCA horn. Anything to pile on?
Franz Nielsen's contract. Twice.
I agree on Evan's mute button, and I will also add in Brad when he's exasperated, covers his mouth with his hands.
I don't do that anymore.
Not as much, no. Or you keep them away, so you're just kind of like doing one of these, which is not bad.
Yeah, I'm amplifying my anger.
Ryan Hubbard says, good day. Duds. Never realized how hard that is to say. Question is, did you guys catch why Larkin was bleeding? The no call, do you think it should have been a call? Here's to hoping for a good game tomorrow, feeling a W. Thanks. Thank you to you guys for making me look forward to Sundays and Wednesdays. Let's go Red Wings.
As soon as he scored, I ceased to care about everything that preceded it.
Was it a high stick? I actually forget what it was exactly. I watched the goal a million times.
I literally don't know.
Yeah, but they missed something on Larkin. He was bleeding from the nose. But hey, it's Larkin. What is he if not battered and bruised at all times? Also, worth noting, maybe he wasn't playing so hot before the injury because he was banged up. Makes sense for him to come back hot. Blocked by Marco Rossi says, good day, mates. Despite some improved Wings performances of late, Zadina continues to show steady development in a growing 200-foot game. If Mantha or Bertuzzi should get traded, can you see him staying on the top line? Oh, yeah, he has to.
Easily.
There's no one else they can put there.
Easily. He should maybe still be there once Bertuzzi comes back.
Tyrone Bigham's brand of pipes, crack pipes, says, I'm close to giving up on fantasy. Good job, Ryan, for pushing me to this point. I wish we could trade our DJ for Carolina's DJ. Ours sucks. DJ. I love the in-arena music. I think it's great. Speaking of trading, if I have to hear one more pregame, John Cooper and Jeff Blashill are best friends and they're so similar. If that's the case, Tampa Bay, just take Blashill. We'll keep Cooper. Let's just trade him for one game. Let's just do it.
They're the same guy. They've had identical results in the NHL. Same person.
Yakaruta says, nice stat for a change. The Red Wings are 7-0-1 when they lead after 2 periods. Do not check how the team is doing when they go in trailing into the third.
I am curious to see how many times they've had a lead in the third period, blown it, and then regained it. Because I feel like it's over half of those games.
Really?
Yeah, because I remember more than a couple game-tying goals in the third this year. So if they haven't lost any in regulation, it means they eventually scored again to win it. So I'm curious on that.
English Major says, hey guys, last week I asked about Keller from Mantha. Weren't too fond of the point production. He's now up to 20 points in 25 games, so we can scratch that deal. Anyways, other than Bobby Ryan, which current member of the Red Wings that might get dealt would you most want to see win the cup?
Other than Bobby Ryan? Glennie. 1000% Glennie.
Glendening, Helm, because I wish Helm all the success in the world. Bernier, if Bernier gets dealt, 100% Bernier.
Yeah,
he deserves it.
I don't think Helm's getting dealt. I think it'll be a pretty tough market for him. Bernier would be a good one. I don't think Mark Stahl has a cup, actually. So he's been close, so that would be a good story.
CNOD says, trying to understand Blash. Anyways, I'm going to try to read this on the fly. Something to do with Blash and Svechnikov deserving more playing time from his own outline of how to get more. Is there something else going on? Is it fair to put it on Blash? Brad touched on it earlier. It's just a lot of confusion. Yeah. And we touched on the TV deal. Maria says, tinfoil hat theory. You know what's better? What's a better job than being the Red Wings head coach? Being a fired NHL head coach. You get paid the same amount to stay home and golf all day. No amount of disgrace will prevent you from getting a new hockey job whenever you want one. So the only downside to getting fired is that you don't currently have a chance to win the cup, which Red Wings. Blashill's figured this out, so he's been desperately piling coals under his own seat and blowing on them. But he only has half a season left, so.
Yeah, he's got no contract next year.
La Plata Peak says Filppula is 36, has 5 points in 20 games and is a -4. Svech is 24, has 4 points in 4 games and a -2. I get why Larkin going back into the lineup cost Svech a spot in Tuesday's game. In other news, I remember when Blashill's similar demeanor and coaching philosophy to that of Babcock was viewed as positive. Understand that financially it makes no sense to fire Blash right now, and doing so probably wouldn't impact the team's record. However, the impact he's having on the development of guys like Svech and Smith has to be taken into account. Would love to see what would happen if they made a switch, brought in someone new, and see the difference of the performance of the young guys. For starters, playing in NHL games has to be beneficial in judging NHL performance, right? Yeah, that's the tagline right there. North Moto, who I believe is a new patron, welcome, says, when are you guys going to start live streams and take callers? Had a lot of plans to do that on weekends this year, and we're still trying to find one that works. Brad's kids rudely just take up so much of his time, but it's still in the plans.
I mean, if everybody wants them on the stream, I can make it happen just about any time.
Yeah.
You would not hear the game or me, though.
And have we thought about doing NHL Live access giveaway? I saw this, and we probably wouldn't be able to legally get away with that, giving away access to one NHL Live. And plus, that's now ending. And it's all region locked as well. Weekend at Bernier says, hey, I was thinking to the past when we could do fun stuff and looking forward to the post-pandemic future. What are your usual pre-game dinner spots or watering holes before seeing a game in Motown? It used to be... I closed down now. I can't remember the name of the place.
Was it Founders?
No, Founders is still there. No, remember the chili place where you had all like the meat, like they have all like the different meat platters? It was closer to the Joe than it is to the LCA.
I like Detroit Beer Co.
Yeah, Detroit Beer Co. is great. I honestly like going to the LCA early.
This conversation in those places seem like we've never been there. Like, it honestly feels like it was a literal lifetime ago.
Yeah,
I know.
Seriously.
I'll probably cry the next time I step in the LCA. Yeah.
I'll cry, but it'll probably be for different reasons. After the game starts.
Evan's massive dump truck full of trebuchets says, looking back at the 2019 draft, rank the following players in terms of future NHL impact. Zegras, Doc, Byram, Sider.
Byram, Zegras, tie between Doc and Sider.
I might have Doc first there.
I still really like Doc, but I don't see what everybody else is seeing. He's good, and he's going to be a top 6 center, no doubt in my mind, but is he going to be a top of his position type guy in the league? I don't see it. I could see Zegras being that guy on the wing. I do see Byram being that at defense, and yeah, like I look at Doc the same way I look at Sider, just at different positions. Like really, 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 really good, but like, are they going to be winning major awards? Probably not.
Jeremy Dahl says, hey guys, we keep talking about how the Wings are playing all right, but the third period collapses, or even against Tampa, the overtime collapse are killing us. That would probably mostly stem from our talent not being as good. Over 60 minutes, our guys are bound to trail off, right? And also all this talk about losing culture and us becoming Buffalo or Edmonton has me nervous. Is it as simple as getting rid of Blashill? Surely a GM as smart as Yzerman can't let that happen to our franchise.
It's not as simple as just getting rid of Blashill, because for as much as I don't think it's an argument in his favor, like people use it, but when people say this team would suck without Blashill, it's true. Like, this is not a good team. This roster has not been good enough to compete for 6, 7, 8 years. So, yeah, replacing Blashill, in my opinion, helps, but Band-Aid on a bullet wound.
AJ Voss says, finding out about the possible dog whistles on Grice's mask was disappointing. Asked my German girlfriend and showed her the mask in question, and she was shocked since there's so much education on that imagery that she doesn't believe he didn't know. Kind of surprised there hasn't been a lot of media controversy, but then again, people don't care if you're not outspoken and don't punch your teammates. Yeah, and that last line, I think, is exactly the unfortunate point. These kinds of things, you know, dog whistles and subtle, not so subtle imagery like that, they hide behind plausible deniability, and it's an uncomfortable story for media to pick up, and it's an uncomfortable, people in media can't outright make the accusation, because then it's just like, no, it's just a coincidence, that kind of thing. So Brad's anger manifested, says, can we petition the NHL to cut all Red Wings games down to 40 minutes? Hey, look, can we pick the 40 minutes? Kyle Hashman says, honk, glad Rask got to play. No idea how Svech was out. Kyle is a brand new name level sponsor. Kyle, thank you, and welcome to the Dub Dub family. He says, as we know, Blash will likely be around until the end of the year. Would there ever be a reason to fire midseason? Yeah, I mean, if it got to like 15 straight losses or something stupid like that, then yeah.
I mean, it's a more competitive division, but I mean, 2 coaches in the Canadian division have got fired for less, for whatever that's worth. But again, teams with higher expectations, which I think is the difference. And Ryan's right. This would have to go very off the rails for it to happen midseason.
Ghost of Podcast Passes. Isn't it weird how you guys have some people from so many different places around the world who support you or give you money to goof around and talk about hockey. Yeah, it's a literal dream for us. You can't tell you how happy it makes us to cover hockey. The next question is funny because it says, how much money would you have to be given to have all three of you sit around a table in the middle of a crowded room while everyone who listens to your show in that room stares at you while you do the podcast? We would do awful. It now.
Yeah. I have zero issues with public speaking, so this doesn't bother me even a little.
We don't know when it's possible, but we are going to do a live recording of this one day.
Oh, 1,000%. 1,000%.
Yeah. And you guys get to see Evan in real time. He doesn't wear pants.
Evan, just keep in mind that our average listeners for an episode sell out the Kitchener Auditorium. So that is what is listening to you right now. Visualize it, Evan.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm in my office. Everything's all good.
All right. It's a lot of people to fit in your office, but we'll get them in there. Brent Razmick says, what are a few rule changes you'd like to see happen? Yes or no on these? Remove challenges.
Yes.
3-on-3 OT until someone scores.
10-minute max. There does have to be a cap for logistical reasons.
Remove trapezoid. Yeah.
I have no strong feelings towards that one way or the other.
Instigating a fight after a clean hit, automatic penalty. Yeah, it already should be.
Like it.
No bringing the puck out of the offensive zone during OT. You either dump it in or shoot it on net. No.
I get it. I think it would just cause more problems.
If a goal is scored on a delay penalty, the penalty should still be enforced.
Yep, I agree.
Boarding is automatic 5-minute major. No, there's too much gray area there.
Yeah, no.
3-2-1 point system. Always been a fan.
1,000% yes.
Remove the whole lottery. If you want to have the lottery for the bottom 3 or 4 teams or number 1 pick, fine.
Agree. 1,000%.
Michael Barry says, how do we avoid becoming Buffalo? Is it just drafting? Drafting, development, coaching. All 3 of those things.
If there was a simple answer here, Buffalo wouldn't be in this position, truthfully.
Lars, the prophet of the towering behemoth, says, could a team that are in the bottom with nothing to play for do this? Would it break any rules? Hypothetically, Red Wings agree to trade Mantha to the Canadiens today for Suzuki in a second rounder. Montreal wants to hold on to Suzuki for 14 days while Mantha clears quarantine to not lose a producing player. Once Mantha clears, Canadiens enter Suzuki into quarantine. No, the moment the trade's done, they don't belong to the team anymore. Couldn't work.
Yeah, even if you didn't complete the trade, wink, there would Mantha would not be an NHL quarantine protocol because he would have to go to Montreal to do that, which is not something that is controlled by Detroit, which would be the team that controlled him. So the NHL would have to be aware of it because he would have to be in the NHL's protocol, and they're going to be like, yeah, you ain't skirting these rules. No chance. The way to skirt this, though, I think everybody would pick up to it right away, is you trade Mantha to Montreal for a conditional 7th round pick, and then 2 weeks later, Nick Suzuki gets traded back to Detroit for a conditional 7th round pick. That would be the way you would quote unquote skirt it, but the NHL would flag that immediately.
Yeah, or Mark Bergevin, if he had any wits about him, would just never do the second half of the deal. Callan S. says, why is DeKaiser so bad at passing the puck? His offensive game has not really ever been there and has completely fallen off.
And he's barely played the last 4 years, so his timing's terrible.
Haroon Khan says, I don't know if you guys saw Blashill's press conference, but it gave me big Babcock vibes. Does Blashill have his own accent? He said the whole reevaluating myself in the summer, and it sounded just like Babs. I'm probably overthinking, but man, I can't help draw the similarities. Scratching Svech and Mantha doesn't seem like him either, and he's a Franzen type player. Let me know what you guys think. Great work, and let's go Red Wings. Yeah, they've always been clones of each other.
I will just say I remember making this joke several times when Blashill first got hired.
Everyone did. That's why we were actually excited about Blashill, because we still had a positive impression of Babcock at the time. Terry, driver of Evans Ferkwagon, says, good day, Duds. Terry, the driver here. Do you lads think Cholowski Cider would be an elite line? Still waiting for your banana thongs to go on sale, Ryan. No, I don't think Cholowski would be a part of an elite NHL pairing, unfortunately. No.
If everything goes exactly right for Cholowski, and
it's too late for that.
And Cider, it could be good because they do their skill sets offset each other well. So if the point you're getting at is, would their chemistry be good? Yes. Do I think Cholowski's a top pairing defenseman? No. Do I think Cider could be a top pairing defenseman? Yes. So unless you're trying to disperse the talent amongst the defense, I don't think they play on the same unit with any regularity, but hey, maybe you put your best left-handed guy with another guy and you put Seider, your best right-handed guy, with Cholowski. It could happen, but I don't think it would be an elite pairing.
I think it could be good, not elite. Brad Simmons says, hey guys, going back to the last episode in the slew foot on Fabry, why are spitting chiclets okay with it? It pisses me off. Also, I love how you guys actually explain the rules. I didn't hear what they said about it, but how is anyone okay with that play? Philip Gastineau says, hey guys, long time no comment. I think one of the biggest, if not the biggest obstacle in our rebuild is the fact that we don't have an actual second line C to help develop our really good wing prospects. How can Raymond or Bergeron develop their full potential when they make the wings the next 2 years if they don't have a good center to play with? Don't think we can draft one to fix this because they won't be ready in time to help develop wingers. Would like to see us trade away our plethora of older wingers, Mantha, Burt, Fabry, to get a below age 26 center like Cirelli. Also think this could accelerate the rebuild without mortgaging any futures, and it would increase it scoring by a lot. What are your thoughts?
Value free agent signing, a better than expected progression from Joe Veleno or Michael Rasmussen, or maybe Fabry just sticks at center, which is the unlikeliest of them, I think.
And I'm Devin, says, how much of a player's impact comes into consideration when it comes to a trade? Is Larkin worth more because of his value to the org off the ice? The NHL announcing the plan to go forward with this year's draft as originally planned. Will first round picks gain or lose value?
I don't know. My gut tells me lose value, but I do not know, because teams could be looking at this going, yeah, good players are going to slip, so I could get better value at that pick. Other teams are going to go, we're not prepared fully for that pick and we'll screw it up. So yeah, someone else take it.
And as for do the Larkin Taves types have more value? Yeah, absolutely. Matt Whip says, how are we feeling about Albert Johansson and Cross Hannes?
Big up on Johansson. Cautious optimism with Hannes. His transition to the USHL hasn't been smooth, but he switched leagues and I think he's had a bit of an injury. So,
All right. And with that, we are going to wrap up this episode of the Winged Wheel podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you to our sponsors, the FanDuel Sportsbook, all of our listeners, our name-level Patreon sponsors, the true heart and soul of the show, Arjun Shankar, Yves Bartel on behalf of the Sarah Grand Foundation, Brett Bailey, Terry, driver of Evans Folkwagen, Taylor Tadgell, Brandon M., Citizen High Five, Craig Kibble, Evans, massive dump truck full of trebuchets, Greach, Hana Lee, Hassam Al-Qassem, Jacob Turner, Kalen Wood, Cody Stark, Kyle Hashman, Luke Johnson, Matt McKay, Matthew M. Rice, R.A., Ryan Hubbard, Scott Martin, Zach Spring, Andrew Bohan, Sam Bankson, another former junior goalie turned golfer, Antonio Gracias, Connor Leighton, Evans bingo card, future Hall of Famer Chris Osgood, Honky Town Evan, Jeremy Brocker, John Evans, Joseph Minama, Josh Yelton, Kevin McCracken, Quaz, Matt Keeler, Stan Olson, Trevor Pevivar. Thank you all so much. We will see you Sunday.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to check out wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find links to other ways to support the show, such as Patreon, official podcast apparel, and more. And don't forget to follow the show on Twitter at Winged Wheel Pod. And of course, the hosts at Brad Crisco, at Ryan Hanna WWP, and at Hockey Town Evan.